learners, I welcome you all to the second segment of lecture 41. So we are talking about the general exceptions in international investment agreement. In the last video, we looked at the significance of providing exceptions in international investment agreement, and in this video we will be looking at the general exception provision that we find in international investment agreement. So for the purpose of this lecture, I have actually considered two sort of a provision that you will find in international investment agreements. One titled as general exception itself. If you refer to any BIT or treaty with investment provision, you may sometimes find a provision that is titled as general exceptions itself. And there's one more provision that you may find titled as prohibitions and restrictions. That's also very similar to general exception provision. Therefore, for the purpose of this lecture, I have clubbed them together in this particular lecture itself, lecture 41 itself. So what is then the difference between a general exception provision and a prohibition and restriction provision? Prohibition and restriction is only limited to health concerns, the issues with regard to public health. But for the sake of 9th week of the course, as I have already mentioned in the previous lecture, I am not making a stringent distinction, very strict distinction between measure taken for health or measure taken for environment, because most often a measure taken for public health will also have an effect of protecting the environment. So for that reason, at least for the sake of the content that we are discussing in the 9th week of the course, I am not taking a very strict distinction, right? I am not differentiating between these two provisions. Okay, so coming back to the content of general exceptions and prohibitions and restrictions also covered in this lecture, right? So what is it that you find in a general exception clause? Mostly we see that the general exception clause in an international investment agreement gets modeled on Article 20 of GATT. So Article 20 of GATT, those who have studied international trade law would know, talks about general exceptions. So that is a similar approach is taken for wording the general exception clause in international investment agreement as well. So then there are the introductory paragraph lays down certain criteria. Then there are certain legitimate objectives that a host state can pursue, that gets mentioned. So the operation of general exception clause in an international investment agreement is, in case if there's been a violation of any other provision of the bilateral investment treaty, that may be justified under the general exception clause. So that is how generally a general exception clause operates, and that is how it will operate in the context of international investment regime as well. So if there is a violation of national treatment, if there is a violation of expropriation provision, whatever it is, if there is a general exception clauses, then that treaty violation may be excused because it falls within the scope of general exception clause. Even then the provision, general exception provision, will also contain certain criteria that had to be fulfilled, right? So the countries can draft their general exception clause whatever they want. So they could probably justify certain measures taken, and that won't amount to certain violation. Probably the general exception could be a violation against FET clause, national treatment, but not expropriation, because you have a different concept of direct expropriation, right? So it is up to the contracting parties to word their general exception clause. We will discuss more about it in the subsequent video, but in this video I want to highlight the fact that the very first provision on general exception can be found in the 1994 BIT between Canada and Ukraine, and then subsequent to this treaty we could see the other treaty signed by Canada also had a similar provision as well. So this can be cited to be the first BIT to have a general exception clause. Right. So, and in this clause also you will see there were certain other criteria that is mentioned that had to be proved by the host state, and then that also begs other sort of questions as to who has the evidentiary burden, who has to prove the non-discriminatory nature of the measure, who has to prove the non-arbitrary nature of the measure. Is it the host state or is it the investor? So then essentially the tribunal undertakes some sort of a substantial analysis of these particular things. So in that case you will find that the tribunal is looking at certain factors and then examining the same under the general exception provision. So the weighing and balancing approach may be taken. We've discussed about the certain approaches that the tribunal may take while reviewing the regulatory measures in the 5th week of the course. right, from lecture number 20 to 25. I hope you remember what we discussed then. So, weighing and balancing approach, lecture number 25, may be something that may be relevant here. So, you could probably revisit lecture 25 if you have forgotten, the review, the approaches that are taken by the arbitral tribunal. Okay. So, then what is the content of a general exception clause? So, we can see some of the provisions that you generally find in an international investment agreement. Some of the common ones we could probably discuss about that. So, I would like to start my discussion with the very first BIT that was signed, which had a general exception clause, Canada-Ukraine BIT 1994. Refer to Article 17, which is titled as Application and General Exceptions. If you look at paragraph 2 of Article 17, then you can easily see that it states that nothing in this agreement shall be construed to prevent a contracting party from adopting, maintaining or enforcing any measure otherwise consistent with this agreement that it considers appropriate to ensure that investment activity in its territory is undertaken in a manner sensitive to environmental concerns, right. So, here if you look at paragraph 3, then paragraph 3 also talks about certain conditions, that is, the measure should not be applied in an arbitrary or unjustifiable manner. The measure should not constitute a disguised restriction on international trade or investment, and then if that is not there, then the agreement will not prevent a contracting party from adopting or maintaining measures including environmental measures. Then I would draw your attention to point number B and point number C. Point number B is talking about necessary to protect the human, animal or plant life or health, and point number C is talking about relating to the conservation of living or non-living exhaustible natural resources. This is very similar to Article 20. Maybe the only point that they have done here was they have added or investment to the chapeau of Article 20 that you will find in GATT as well, right. So, that is how Article 20 becomes the basis of the model for us to, so for the drafters to include the provision on international investment agreement. So, even the BITs that were concluded by other countries also, you can sometimes see the general exception provision. So, in my analysis, what I see is a basic general exception provision goes along the line of the provisions of this agreement shall not in any way limit the right of the either contracting party to make laws and apply prohibitions or restrictions of any kind or take any other action which is directed to the protection of its essential security interest or to the protection of public health or to the protection of environment generally. So, that is also something that you will find. Sometimes there is a general exception clause, but that is only limited to the protection of health and not the protection of the environment. An example for this would be El Salvador and Finland BIT of 2002. Here we could see that the general exception provision stated that the measures are not, if the measures are not applied in a manner which would constitute a means of arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination by a contracting party or a disguised investment restriction, nothing in this agreement shall be construed as preventing the contracting parties from taking any measure necessary for the maintenance of public order or in circumstances of a threat to the life or health of humans, animals and plants. So, that is one way. Then sometimes we also find general exception clauses in annexes as well. For example, Canada-Costa Rica BIT of 1998. So, there Annex 1 has a heading General and Specific Exceptions, and that provide for some special provisions which sort of extend to the whole agreement itself, and these provisions state that the contracting parties can take measures for protecting human, animal or plant life and health, and those relating to the conservation of living or non-living exhaustible natural resources, provided such restrictions on domestic production or consumption unless it is not applied in an arbitrary manner or a disguised restriction. So, this is how the wordings of such provisions goes. You find it in annex as well. Then sometimes you also find this provision under the heading applicable laws clause as well, and one example would be Benin UAE BIT of 2013. So if we look at Article 14 is titled as applicable laws, but in the second paragraph it says that nothing in this agreement precludes the host contracting party from taking necessary reasonable measures in accordance with its laws applied generally on a non-discriminatory basis in circumstances of extreme emergency for the specific purpose of prevention of diseases or pests or for the protection of the environment. So we've seen that there are various ways for that the countries can use to draft the general exception clause, but the reason why we call it as a general exception clause is the exception is provided to the other obligations under the treaty. That is where it becomes a general exception clause. In next lecture number 42, we will look at the particular exception. So then you will get a complete clarity as to why we call this as general exception. Because you may feel that the scope is limited, but why are we still calling it as general exception? Because this acts as an exception to many other provisions of the treaty, right? So that is where it is called as a general exception. So it is up to the contracting parties to draft the general exception clause in whatever way they want. But then I do have my own suggestion how should the contracting parties draft in order to afford the best protection for environmental regulatory measures, that I will discuss in the subsequent video. In the next segment, I will discuss more about the significance of having a general exception clause, and then subsequently I will discuss whether it is good, if it is good to model a general exception clause in an international investment agreement as that of a trade agreement, because essentially both regimes are different. The way that regulatory measures are taken in both regimes are also different, right? So that is also something that we will discuss in the next segment. Thank you.